You know, it's funny how the simplest things, the stuff we think we know inside and out, can hide some of the most amazing complexities. Well, today, we're basically going on a linguistic detective mission, and our one and only piece of evidence? It's this tiny 5-question grammar test. So, let's jump right in.
This right here, this is it. This is our source. It's from a test in a Sinhala language paper, and all it says is, fill in the plural nouns. I mean, it looks pretty harmless, right? But believe it or not, tucked away inside these 5 little questions are the keys to understanding 3 totally different and sometimes kind of contradictory rules of English grammar.
So that's our mission. We're going to treat this simple test like it's the Rosetta Stone. By just solving these 5 fill-in-the-blank questions, we are going to uncover the secret logic and, frankly, the beautiful chaos of how English makes things plural. You ready?
Okay, so let's look at the evidence itself, the test. On the surface, the whole thing looks incredibly simple, but trust me, each one of these questions is like a breadcrumb, and it's going to lead us down a completely different path.
The instructions seem super straightforward. You get a noun in parentheses, you write the plural version in the blank. Easy, right? You see a word, you just add an S to it. Well, that's usually how it works, but not always. Let's look at our first piece of evidence.
All right, let's start with the easy stuff, the familiar territory. These are the predictable rules that most of us probably learned back in school.
So our first question gives us the word mango. We have a bag of ripe what? This one feels pretty familiar. It's a noun, it ends in the letter O, and boom, there it is, mangoes. You just add an ES. This is our first rule, what we can call the suffix rule. You see it all the time with words like potato, tomato, hero. They all follow this exact same pattern. It's neat, it's tidy, and it makes sense. So far, so good.
Okay, next up, clue number 2. The test gives us the word knife. Now this one's a little bit different. We're not just going to tack something on at the end. The end of the word itself has to change.
And this shows us a cool little twist on that suffix rule. For a lot of words that end in F or FE, you actually drop that ending and you add Vs. You know, like leaf becomes leaves, or wife becomes wives. It's another predictable pattern. At this point, you're probably thinking, English is pretty logical. But our next clue is about to blow all of that up. Because just when we think we've got the code all figured out, the test throws us a total curveball. This next word, it plays by a completely different set of rules. Really, really old ones.
The third word we get is woman. So, 2 womans or womenis? Yeah, neither of those sounds right, do they? The suffix rules we just figured out are completely useless here. So what is the answer?
Take a look at what's happening here. The change isn't at the end, it's inside the word. That A flips to an E. This is actually a relic, a leftover from Old English, from a time when plurals were made by changing the vowel sound inside the word. We still see it today with man to men or foot to feet.
So what we've just stumbled upon is what linguists call an irregular plural. It doesn't follow the modern neat and tidy rules. Instead, it's carrying a little piece of the language's history with it. And that's the key here. This tiny test has already shown us that English isn't just one system, but layers of different systems all piled on top of each other.
Now, the last 2 questions on this test, they introduce a whole new puzzle, the compound noun. This is when you have a phrase made of multiple words, and you have to figure out which part of it actually becomes plural.
So check this one out. Piece of cake. Do you say piece of cakes or something else? The big question is, where does that S even go?
Luckily, there's a really simple 2-step rule for this. First, you just have to find the main noun, the actual thing you have more of. And second, you make only that word plural. The rest of the phrase just stays exactly the same.
So let's look at piece of cake. What do you have 2 of? Do you have 2 cakes? Nope. You have 2 pieces. So piece is the main noun. And the answer is pieces of cake. See? It's simple and elegant once you know the trick.
All right, last question. Cup of ice cream. Let's use our new rule. What's the main noun here? What are there many of? Exactly. The ice cream is just the stuff that's in the cups. What you have many of is the cups. So the answer is cups of ice cream. The main noun rule works perfectly.
And that's it. We've cracked the entire test. So let's just step back for a second and think about what this tiny exercise has shown us. From just 5 fill-in-the-blank questions, we've basically gone on a tour through the entire history and logic of the English language.
We've uncovered 3 totally separate ways that English makes plurals.
We've got the suffix rule, our nice, predictable friend. We've got the vowel swap rule, the ancient rule breaker. And we've got the main noun rule for those tricky little phrases. I mean, who knew you could get all that from just a handful of examples?
And that's really the big takeaway here. All those so-called exceptions we learn in English class, they aren't really exceptions at all. They're fossils. They're echoes of older rules from different languages that have all been layered on top of each other for centuries to create this complex, sometimes frustrating, but always fascinating language we speak today.
It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? If a simple little test on plurals can hide all of this history and logic, what other secrets are just lurking in the parts of grammar that we totally take for granted every single day? Definitely something to think about.